I guess you could say that this episode was a long time coming. Oh, I hate myself. Hello, my name is Meerah, and I am a Lorekeeper in one of Yogg-Sothoth's libraries, and today I'm going to tell you the story of a serial killer with a very tragic past from the MMO Black Desert. That's right, I'm finally covering the Lahn class, the one I swore I would never really talk about because her story doesn't really have anything happy in it. This one's just kind of a bummer, guys, so there's your disclaimer, and here we go. In a faraway eastern kingdom, there was a towering castle called Kirin. One day, the growth that covered the back of the castle began creeping towards its inner walls. The most prominent noble families of the kingdom were discussing the implications of this omen when clouds started to creep upon the full moon and covered it. Yet a small patch in the forest nearby stayed illuminated for 6 days. Reputable scholars then declared, "This is the scent of an orchid. Isn't it the most elegant of smells? This smell has been permeating the village for several days already. Wouldn't you agree it would be the most auspicious omen, and the plant giving off this fragrance would be priceless?" The king, hearing the scholar's acclamation, commanded his soldiers to search the forest and bring him the source of this fragrance. The king's soldiers chased after the light and finally came across a glorious orchid flower. Underneath it was a baby as delicate and magnificent as the flower itself, swaddled in cloth. The baby was brought to the castle, and a rumor spread that the baby was a goddess of orchids who was reborn into this realm as a blessing from above to the kingdom. The entire kingdom rejoiced. Even the king, who was revered throughout his kingdom for his cruelty, vowed to raise the baby himself to become a protector of the kingdom. The child apparently had an unimaginable latent potential. Many martial artists of the kingdom, recognizing this, wanted to be the one to teach her. However, the king had his own ideas about what her education should be like. She was taught to perform ceremonial sword dances at festivals and other special events. Even though she performed beautifully, she was not allowed to pursue any further swordsmanship. However, although she was not able to hone her body, she was able to hone her mind under the tutelage of many great sages. At 16, the child became a shrine guardian and took on many new roles. She did her best to advise the kingdom's royal court with her peerless mind and rhetoric. She wanted to put the kingdom back on the right track. The common people came to adore her for this. However, there were people who still distrusted her. Her rise in popularity and influence did not go unnoticed or unenvied. Members of the king's court began to conspire against her, seeding fear and doubt into the king's heart. Fearing her popularity, the king locked the child away in an isolated room and only allowed her out to perform rituals for the shrine. One day, a young man climbed over the walls and snuck into the shrine guardian's residence. The young man introduced himself as Young Room Hyung. He was already a member of the court, but he claimed that one day he would be the strongest person in all the kingdom. "I know that you have great potential, Shrine Guardian, and it's just waiting to be released. Anyone can tell by how skillfully you perform your ceremonial dances. Everyone who sees them is instantly captivated by your skills. Do you really want to spend the rest of your days with only your books to learn from?" The Shrine Guardian, of course, was quick to agree with him and started to train with him in secret. To commemorate this occasion, he gifted the Shrine Guardian a long and sturdy cloth to tie up her hair during the many years of rigorous training to follow. The Shrine Guardian, who was smart and gifted, was soon matched in skill with him. As they trained together, both their martial arts skills grew more and more. As the years passed, the Shrine Guardian grew to be a graceful and wise woman, and she was adored even more by the people in the kingdom. Meanwhile, word of Yong's martial prowess spread throughout the land, and he became a hero figure to the common people. During this time, the king fell more and more paranoid due to the schemes of his treacherous courtiers. The king became jealous of the Shrine Guardian's popularity and wanted to banish her from his kingdom, but he also didn't want to give his subjects more reason to hate him. One day, one of the courtiers said to the king, "I am fearful, that woman, that Shrine Guardian. I am sure she is trying to win over your people so that she can take your rightful throne. You should command her to take Eshi Castle with that troublemaker Jung. Can you believe he is really trying to rally up the common people to his side? You can use the opportunity to ensure they both will be killed. Only then can your grace rest easily once more." For countless years, the kingdom had been trying to take that specific castle, but it was impregnable. But the king gave the orders for that castle to be attacked, and Young and the Shrine Guardian, joined by their closest allies and a band of soldiers personally chosen by the king, started marching there straight away. Although Young thought it was strange that very little resources were allocated to the expedition, he did dare not question the king's orders. Besides, he believed that with the Shrine Guardian by their side, victory would be certain. 6 days they marched, and Ishi Castle was still nowhere in sight. They ended up in a vast open field. Suddenly, as if given an invisible signal, the king's vanguard turned on the Shrine Guardian and Yung's group. And in that moment, they both knew that this was just a ruse planned to get them killed. Their friends fell one by one. All Yung could do was cry out in sorrow. Finally, he grabbed one of his fallen men's weapons and leapt into battle, but he was greatly outnumbered. His valiant effort was no match against the numbers of the king's men. He was ready to succumb to his fate. At that moment, he saw a crescent pendulum swinging and cutting through the attacking soldiers. It was the Shrine Guardian. She had the crescent pendulum on one end of the sword, and on the other end was the piece of cloth that he had given to her so many years ago. With this strange contraption, she was cutting through her foes in an elegant display of martial arts, the likes of which Yung had never seen before. She had apparently kept this still secret even from him. Finally, the last treacherous soldier fell. The field was now well watered with blood, but despite the carnage around Yung and the Shrine Guardian, they somehow smelled a strong fragrance of orchids. He said to her, "Get away from here and go west. If you go back home now, they'll find another way to try and kill you. So head west and keep on trading. Maybe one day when you're strong enough you can come back home. But for now you have to leave." The Shrine Guardian was confused by Yung's rambling and tried to take his hand, but he slapped it away. The Shrine Guardian suddenly noticed a sword piercing through Yung's chest. She understood then what Yung was trying to say to her. When he saw that the Shrine Guardian was close to tears, he tried to comfort her and said, "There is nothing to be sad about. I will always be with you in spirit. Every time you train, it will be as if I am by your side. So please don't be upset." These were his last words, blown away by the wind in a torrent of petals. As she gathered his dead body into her arms, those words kept going through her head. He was clever and fearless, and this was not how she envisioned his life to end. After she buried him, she found herself unable to leave the body. She thought back to her life, how she was kept away from people and shut up indoors. She didn't want to go back to that life. She didn't want to run away and become a sage either, living her life through books. She had fought and killed. She was a warrior now. She had lost the person closest to her, but her story had just begun. So she promised herself she would go west and keep training, and one day she'd be strong enough to come home and face those who betrayed her and Yung. A part of her also died on that day, as you can imagine. And her sorrow would fester into a tiny seed of hatred and fury. Where once she thought the world was void of evil, Lahn saw that only death was the true bringer of peace in this world. Filled with conviction, she set out to deliver this world unto its annihilation. Lahn ran away from her home in the east and came to this continent to devote herself to training and to try and move on despite her past tragedies. Then one day, Yung, the friend that she saw die, came back and asked her to follow him for a greater cause. He wanted to help find a pair of crimson glaives that would supposedly help illuminate the path that they should take. When Lahn found the weapon, she became consumed by an evil curse. In fact, all this was just trickery by a traitor from her homeland who remains unnamed, but had disguised themselves as Yung. The traitor thought that he could easily get rid of Lahn after she awakened the Glaives. However, Lahn's spiritual powers and the curse of the Glaives reacted to each other, and she obtained the power of destruction. So that didn't quite go the way he planned. The traitor, for obvious reasons, felt that he was in danger and took out a pitch black stone and harnessed its powers. However, he ended up not being able to handle the power of the stone, and he became a grotesque. That's literally what it says. I'm going to assume that a grotesque is meant to be, like, in the context, it's similar to the other creatures in Black Desert that have been consumed by the power of black stones. So, like, Red Nose or Gieth, halfway through their fight, when they get all big and have the ruins on their skin and stuff. Stepping over the cold carcass of the traitor, Lahn stood in front of the Crimson Glaives. She threw her crescent pendulum and noble sword on the ground and picked up the glaives. The Crimson Glaives of Destruction were sealed by an evil energy, and it is said that only the wicked could lift the seal and obtain their destructive powers. The Crimson Glaives recognized Lahn as their master and allowed her to wield them. Still believing that death brings eternal peace, a dark madness took over her mind. She kept heading west, leaving a trail of death behind. Eventually, due to the mysterious events that occurred on this continent, she ended up losing both her memories and the Crimson Glaives. According to the Black Spirit, not everyone currently knows about Lahn's murderous rampage and how she like wiped out several villages across the continent, just completely decimated them. And those people only know her current amnesiac self. He refers to those that know her as the Lahn to be feared, and those that know her as the goody two-shoes Lahn, quote unquote. Those are the spirit's words, not mine. So yeah, that's the end. Not exactly a happy story, but a story nonetheless. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it or found it interesting in some way. If you did, please consider leaving a like or a comment. And if you'd like to be notified the next time I post a Black Desert lore video, you can click that subscribe button and ring the bell. Thank you as always to my supporters who make my content possible. If you would like to support the channel, you can do so through Ko-fi. Or Ko-fi? I pronounce it coffee. Anyway, that's it from me for now. I hope to see you next time here in the library.